year. It's less than €2 a week. So what's the problem with it? And a lot of people's temptation would be to say the same thing. It's only €100 a year. But that tax will be in for 2 years. And after 2 years, that tax will be used to fund the installation of meters on every house in the country. And after 2 years, that tax will then become the water tax. And it's estimated that every house in the country will be paying a minimum of around about €800 per house when the water tax comes in. Personally, I think it'll be higher than that, and the government are saying about €400. The ESRI has estimated around about €800. So in 2 years' time, every house in the country will be paying €800 of water tax. And then, after the water tax is acceptable, the government will also set up Water Ireland, which will become like the ESB or Board Gas. It'll be a semi-state body that will run the water system in the whole country. And when that happens, then water will be ready for privatisation. Because you'll have a billing system, you'll have a bill collection system, and you'll have one national body that will cover the whole country that will deal with all the water resources. It'll be ideally placed to hand it over to, to multinational companies to run and control our water within our country. And the power to disconnect your water will be handed over to multinationals, be taken away from your local authority and from your local council, and be handed over to them, and become a way of them making money on the backs of Irish people. And then, also, along with that, we will also have in 2 years' time a property tax. And it's estimated that the property tax will be at least €500 per house as well. So in total, in 2 years' time, every single one of us will be paying around about €1,300 a year for the pleasure of having water and a house. And we'll have no choice but to do that, unless we stand up, and unless over the next couple of years we stand up and we resist and we say we're not accepting it. We want something different, we want alternatives, and we're putting it up to the government to guarantee those alternatives to us. And the third element of all this is the septic tank tax. And the septic tank tax, I know there was a meeting in Legley last Saturday night, and there's a lot of airplay in the media now at the minute with it. And the septic tank tax is going through the Seanad this week. It should be concluded in the Seanad on Wednesday. And then over the next couple of weeks will come before the Dáil, and be forced through in the Dáil as well. And while myself and Luke will be opposing it, and we'll be forcing votes on it and voting against it, the government has a huge majority, and they're going to bring it in. And the septic tank tax, when it was originally muted, well, they were talking about €300 registration fee. But people got up in arms and people resisted it. And people said, no, we won't take it, we're not going to accept that. And the government got frightened, and the government very quickly, in the legislation that's published, has reduced it to a maximum of €50 of a registration fee. And I'm saying that it'll be when you register, you'll be registered for 5 years. So popular resistance can work, and has put pressure on the government. The government has also, when they published the legislation, said that if your tank gets assessed and you're told you have work to do, and you don't just dispute it and you want to go and get another test done to verify whether you have to do anything in the first place, that you would have to pay up to €200 to have that retest done. The Minister has turned around now in the Seanad last week and said that he's going to reduce that to €20. That's in response to resistance and opposition across the board and across the country, to meetings like this where people are coming together and saying that we're not going to put up with it and we're not going to have it. And that's where the resistance can make a difference. And that's where you have to remember that you have to resist, and resist water taxes and resist the household tax as well, and we can have an impact, and we can show this government that we're not going to allow it to happen. But the septic tank tax is the first element in this battle, and that will become law probably before Christmas, ready to be implemented in the new year. And there will be that'll put a fairly onerous responsibility on all householders and to register their properties, to have their inspections, carry out remedial works if they decide that it has to be done. It'll generate a whole business of inspectors running around the country who will be lining up to get this work. It'll generate a whole raft of companies inundating people living in rural areas with the magic, wonderful solutions to your affluent problems, and forcing their lists on you. The government will make the list of people who register public and available. So if I own a business selling septic tanks and treatment systems, I have a free list of all my potential customers there. I can go out and inundate those people and put them under pressure to spend money maybe that they don't need. And that will come in from the new year. We will resist it in the Dáil. We will force votes against it. The government has a huge majority. They'll bring it in. But if people in this room go out and say that they're not having it and they want to change it and they want to resist it, and if people go out and get onto their TDs and their public representatives and say that they're going to fight it, well then we can fight it and maybe make it into something that's more acceptable to all of us. But remember, when you fight that, you have to fight the household tax, you have to fight the property taxes as well. And remember always when in your background when you're doing that we are saying we are not happy with the IMF and with the deal and the austerity that's been forced on us. We're not happy with what the government is doing and say that they're doing it in our name when we know they're not doing it in our name. They're doing it in the name of Germany. We're doing it, and when we've seen over the last week where the German Finance Committee gets to see our budget 4 or 5 weeks before it's even published and even delivered in the Dáil, they get to have their say on it. So they're telling us that we have to bring in these septic tank charges. They're telling us we have to bring in these water charges. They're telling us we have to bring in these household taxes. And we have to say, no, that we want this government and we're going to force our government to act in the interests of the Irish people and not in the interests of the German people or the French or anybody else in Europe, and put the Irish people front and foremost in the debate and the discussion. I'm not going to say too much more, only just to say to people, remember you have power and you have a say and you have a right, and you can stand up and you can say no and you can say enough is enough. And you have that power and you can exercise it. It's not only in the ballot box that you can do it, but you can exercise it every day in your everyday life. Pick up the phone, ring your local TD, ring your councillors, tell them you're not accepting it, write letters, and that power will be listened to and that power will be heard. And by doing that and by standing together, you can make it into something that we can all be proud of and we can all be happy of, and we can all be happy to be citizens of Ireland first.